Good morning, everybody. How are you? It is 5:46 a.m. 1 minute late, my apologies. On June 1st, 2023. Okay, got some stuff all over my desk. I'm working on something. I'm working on a new project. I'm always working on some sort of new strength and conditioning projects. I can't shut my mind off. This one's a big one. I'd be lucky to have it done by the end of the year, so sorry. Mr. Ortiz, how are you, sir? But yeah, so we'll check back into that later. Okay, we got a lot of stuff, and so let's just go ahead and dive right in. Got a fresh coffee, and life is good. All right, I think I can there's a fair amount of questions, but I think if I move at a good pace, then I'm going to go ahead and, get going here. So here we go. All right, first and foremost, from Marcus M. Will there ever be a CrossFit Linchpin athlete program? And what Marcus means by that is competitive athletes. Oh, I get this question potentially more regularly than you might think. Random people reach out. I'm always happy and honored. My response at the moment is I do not have any immediate plans to do that. And so that's the short answer. The short answer is no. I don't know if that'll happen somewhere down in the future, but the short answer right now is no. Just because I think and this might actually relate to a question that CW CrossFit asks later. I think one of the fastest ways to just become gray matter, not have a personality, and to lose your identity, in my opinion, of course I could be totally wrong, is to try to be everything to everybody. And the answer is always yes, or you do 28,000 different things. And then if you do 28,000 different things, I don't know, what are you? So we've stuck to our guns for a very long time here at Linchpin, and I think through that, if people hear Linchpin or see the symbol or whatnot, I think they have an idea as to what we're all about. Making smart decisions, respecting the heavy days, giving the smallest dose of strength and conditioning each day to yield the greatest effect, telling the truth, stuff like that. So I think if I added to that, and right now that's not who we're all about. So that's kind of a no at the moment. And there's some really cool people that chimed in, for example. That's not to say, and it just depends on what level you want to compete, is maybe that's a different deal. You live in your city and they have a throwdown on the weekend and you want to go ahead and compete in the throwdown, I think you'd be absolutely just fine. Will it be more workouts than you're potentially used to? Probably. Might lead to some level of soreness afterwards. That makes sense to me. But you'll be able to do it. Now, if you're talking about the games, that's an entirely different beast. I mean, it's like, yes, we're doing CrossFit and they're doing CrossFit, but it's not really the same. From the exposure to the volume to the reps to the hours spent training to the dedication, it's just not the same. It's like, I drive a car every day. Lewis Hamilton drives a car every day. We're both engaged in driving, yet he's like the most winning F1 driver in the world. I'm just a regular driver. So, I mean, it's worlds apart, even though we're both engaged in the same thing. It's kind of the same deal with competition. So at this point in time, no. But Paul S. commented, because he likes to throw down every now and then, so he replied to Marcus and said that he's made it to the finals of both the German and CrossFit Lowlands throwdowns in 21 and 2022 in the Masters 45. I think the programming is actually perfect for Masters to be able to compete, etc., etc. I would certainly note, though, that games level stuff is definitely different. So it just depends upon the level that you want to compete. But right now, it's a no. Okay. From Henry H. Any advantage or disadvantage or issue to doing the accessory work later in the day after the workout? So I'm guessing that it's got time to throw the workout down, doesn't get to do the accessory work, has to come back and do it later. No worries in any way, shape, or form. You're totally good to go with that. And as a matter of fact, you could make an argument for both, right? If you do it a short period of time after the workout, hey, at least you're warmed up, and then you're hitting then the advantage could potentially be you're hitting the accessory work in a little bit of a fatigue state, and you're building that ability to drive through and push through in a fatigue state right there. The other side of that coin could be you do it later in the day. All right, maybe you've cooled down, you need to warm back up again, but you're probably rested a little bit. You might be able to hit it with some more intensity. So either one could have its benefit. And if you're choosing to do the accessory work, I think you're fine either way, to be quite honest with you. But there's another CrossFit thing, CrossFit Linchpin thing, right? I'm here to tell you, remember, and I know, Henry, you know this, but the accessory work is optional. You do not need to do accessory work to be wonderfully fit on the planet. And again, that's the difference between, are we talking fit for regular life or like to be a competitor? I'm not talking about being a competitor. That's a world of difference. You just want to be a regular human being and be a ferocious beast of fitness, a modern day gladiator. Workout of the day, and you're good to go. Want to do some extra stuff? Have at it, but don't feel compelled to do it. Okay, sorry for the annoying sips of coffee, but coffee is life. I took a little Instagram poll, sidebar, on my regular, not the Linchpin Instagram, on my personal Instagram yesterday, just asking people to vote whether they liked light roast, medium roast, or dark roast, or didn't care at all. And it was a tight race, but believe it or not, dark roast came out, which I don't know a lot about coffee, but people who know about coffee, and I think saying that you know about coffee is just a polite way to say that you're a coffee snob. I've always been told that dark roast is like burnt coffee, and it's not, what you should be drinking. It's a medium roast or a light roast. But hey, the people spoke anyway, and dark roast won out. And I got to tell you, I'm right there with you. Dark roast for me. Okay, CW CrossFit. Here we go. You and Adrian, an untrustworthy individual. Joking. You and Adrian often talk about a minimalist approach. So, where do you stand on how much an affiliate should offer to their members? For example, is it sufficient just to offer CrossFit classes and an open gym? Or should they / must they offer all the bells and whistles that I see at some affiliates? Lifting classes, gymnastics, Pilates, yoga, nutrition, kids, teens, fundamentals, team training, competitive training, and laser tag. I added the laser tag part. She didn't say laser tag. I guess given you should be able to practice and improve skills within a class. Not sure if this is the way affiliates have to be to stay competitive, but I do notice a lot of people joining CrossFit boxes more recently, they seem to expect a quote-unquote everything package. Does this dilute in any way the original garage gym CrossFit idea? Wow. Great question. So there's a lot there. I'll try to get through it in a relatively concise manner so I can get through the other questions here. First of all, as I've said before, what I enjoy about the way that CrossFit has done business and currently does is that it's an affiliate model and not a franchise. And by that I mean you've got the freedom as a business owner to do what you want to do. Huge fan of freedom, business, life. I think it's a good thing. And so it's nice that affiliate owners can choose to offer a little or a lot. I can see pros and cons to both, but I have to think that affiliate owners, if they have 35 different things under the roof, right, from lifting classes to yoga classes to fundamentals to you just want to power lift, you just want to Olympic lift, maybe some gyms have an MMA section, whatever it is, if somebody, let's say, gets burnt out doing CrossFit, you might be able to keep them in your ecosystem, keep them paying each month. I mean, let's be honest and real, right? I mean, people's bills aren't paid through kind words and good wishes. Currency is needed. So if you can keep them in your ecosystem, well, that's a good thing. And maybe they go do the Pilates, the yoga, whatever it is for a few months, then they miss the other thing, and then they come back. And so I think that might be something which is going on, which is, a way to deal with boredom in one way, shape, or form to keep people in the ecosystem all under one roof. Potentially so. I hope that I hope that gym owners don't feel compelled to do that, because that might be, well, so-and-so down the street's doing it, I have to do it. Again, I can see how that would happen, but hopefully each gym owner opens the gym that they feel best serves the community, and whatever offerings that's whatever the offerings are. Do I feel that it dilutes in any way the original garage gym idea from CrossFit? This kind of ties back to the opening question we had in last week's AMA. That AMA was entitled "Heavy Lift plus Metcon Every Day equals Mediocre Results." And if you haven't listened to that one, you should. It was well received. But that spoke about the challenges faced by the modern day affiliate compared to how CrossFit started. Don't get upset with me. Go read the original CrossFit Journal articles. The original articles weren't about how to open an affiliate. It was not that at all. It was about a garage gym revolution. And that's, in large part, that's what we do here at Linchpin. That you can have a minimal amount of gear, and with a minimal amount of time, some knowledge, and some great people around you, you can just crush it. You can reach elite level fitness, and thousands and thousands of square feet is not needed. Thousands and thousands of dollars of fancy selectorized machines are not needed, etc., etc. And so it wasn't about the affiliate initially. Now the affiliate rose out of it. So many things rose out of that original idea. So does it dilute it? That's a tough one that I struggle with. I struggle with the word dilute. I'm not sure. It just depends on what they're doing there. You could go to that facility that you just said that has 2,800 different options, and if you attended the CrossFit class and not the Pilates class, there's a chance that you could get a real, true CrossFit experience. Or there's a chance you could get the part A, B, C, and D, too much stuff jammed into an hour, no coaching actually happened. I did put a mediocre effort into a rushed lift, then a mediocre effort into a 22-minute AMRAP because everybody felt that we needed a sweat. I'm overtrained, I'm broken, I'm demotivated, and I've plateaued. Well then you would be getting a very diluted experience as to what actually works from the methodology. So it would just depend upon how they roll during those classes. But it's a very interesting question. Next one is from Ed T. If our doctor tells us not to lift heavy, what is the best approach on heavy days? Do the movements, but use light weights such as dumbbells or kettlebells, or is there another way to approach it? I can do metcons with lighter weights and still feel it, but I'm confused with what to do on heavy days. So, here we are on the internet. Here we are with a question with somebody who has spoken to their medical professional, and then enter Pat Sherwood, who barely graduated college with a 2.52 in sociology many years ago from a meaningless school that no one's ever heard about. And here I am going to weigh in on some medical situation. Allow me to sip my coffee first. Hopefully it goes without saying, after what I just hope was taken as a satirical lead into this question, that be it me or somebody else, I can't legally tell you to do something that goes against your doctor does. That would be negligent on so many levels. It would be preposterous. So please take that with a grain of salt. You got to do whatever your doctor tells you to. Maybe you can have a good conversation with, he or she and figure out what it is. Some things that you might want to chat with your doctor about, if we're just having a conversation that's not, medical advice, is, well, first of all, why? Why is that? If you've got a good reason, you've got something going on with a particular amount of strain or pressure in your heart or a joint or something, it's probably something you want to pay some attention to. Now, if you guys have a conversation, you figure out it can be worked out, great, fantastic. If the conversation leads to heavy weights, however that's defined, you can't touch. And that's an interesting slippery slope, right? That's probably going to be far more subjective than objective, right? What's a heavy weight, right? And is it a heavy weight for a single, a double, a triple, a 5? If you take a 53-pound kettlebell, that's not a heavy weight in the grand scheme of things, right? But if you place it in the front rack like a goblet squat and try to do 100 unbroken goblet squats, it's going to feel really heavy sometime during that journey, and it will put a tremendous amount of strain in the later reps if you're trying to do them unbroken, even though the quote-unquote loading isn't heavy. So it's kind of a slippery devil to get your hands on. So I try to figure out what that is. But then let's just say you guys do define what heavy weights are and you can't do them. And the question becomes, what should you do on heavy days if the doc's okay with it? And getting back to your question, if the doc is okay with it, then yeah, I mean, it is my personal opinion, and I wouldn't even say personal opinion now, from the years and years that the Linchpin private track has been around and the thousands of athletes we have collecting data there, that the limited equipment option, meaning the dumbbell option, if you did get the green light that, hey, you know what, yeah, you can't touch heavyweight, but a pair of 50-pound dumbbells or a pair of 35-pound dumbbells, that's okay, and you were okay to do the limited equipment option on heavy days, you would not be shortchanged at all. Period. End of story. So if that can happen, that would be a great recommendation right there. And whatever it is, if you do have the opportunity to just do lighter weights on Metcons, and let's just say whatever medical situation you had going on, that was going to be your path for the rest of your life. Sorry, it's never going to change. You're always going to be able to do light to moderate weight Metcons. That's it. I mean, let's talk about the comparison to not doing anything, to sitting on the couch doing isolation movements. You're going to be fantastic. That matched with a clean diet, you'll have no worries in this world. So talk to your doc, figure it out. But yeah, the limited equipment option, if that's okay with your doc, you're solid, 100%. Okay. Ben M. Height is likely a consideration for the pointy end of the CrossFit Games competitors. For us normal human beings, is there any height-related advice or guidance you give to tall athletes? I'm 6'4", or conversely to shorter athletes, or are the basic principles of scaling and modifying all we need? Largely speaking, the basic principles of scaling and modifying are all you need. But there's a little caveat, a little asterisk next to that, right? Which is, you are always authorized to make a smart decision, to use common sense, I guess what I'm trying to say is, don't ever feel compelled, whether you're tall or short or whatever it is, to do something just because that's the way years ago CrossFit just said it should be done. Okay, don't put too much stock into that. So, I don't know, let's take something like a box jump. Men have to do 24 inches and women have to do 20 inches. Really? Why? What was the astonishing level of high-level analysis that led to those heights? Why wasn't it 30 inches and 24 inches? Why wasn't it 20 inches and 16 inches? Why wasn't it whatever? I don't know, and I actually don't have the answer to that question. Or was it those were very ubiquitous, common, easy to find box heights and they worked really well from day one? That could be it as well. But if you're feeling some compulsion that you've got to jump on this height because that's how it is, I wouldn't do that. So if you're very short, for example, a 24-inch box for a guy, that just might be too darn tall. Just don't do that. Jump on a shorter height box, and you know what? You're still jumping. You're still engaging the posterior chain, getting an explosive hip opening, leaving planet Earth, getting some impact training. You're fine if you're just choosing the box height that you do. If you're doing wall ball shots and you feel that your target should be a little higher or a little lower for whatever particular reason, but it's consistent for you and you do it that way every time, okay, maybe you can't compare your data perfectly to a bunch of other people, but it's consistent for you, you're good to go. You said that you're quite tall there at 6'4". I remember when Adrian and I did an interview in the early days of Varied Not Random with Stefan Roche, who has a background in collegiate strength and conditioning and obviously understands the value of the squat. But he was saying when he trained the basketball team, a lot of those guys are so tall and lanky and their legs are 28 feet tall. They've got limbs everywhere, and the squat mechanics for some of them, that just, no matter how hard they try, it just didn't look good. Look like something you would, like a praying mantis trying to squat a barbell. Just like, something's not right there. So he would have them do either weighted box step-ups or weighted lunges. And okay, they didn't do the barbell squat, which is such a glorious movement that if you can do it, you should, but it didn't make sense for these people. And so the intended stimulus of strengthening the body below parallel was achieved in a different way. And so I would just say, whether you're tall or whether you're short, with whatever the workout happens to be, don't feel some compulsion to do it. Feel a compulsion to achieve the intended stimulus in the most intelligent manner that makes sense for you and where you are in your fitness journey, and whatever it is that you're working with. That should kind of supersede everything else. And in order to do that, that's why these conversations are important, right? Because you have to have a little bit of the nuanced knowledge as to why we're doing things, what's the interplay between this, and if I swap this out, how does it affect this? And that's what you get from these. So I would use that information to make good decisions. Okay. Diving into the BTWB squads feature. Let's see. From Jordan S. What level of importance do you place on the warm-up? I've recently been working towards completing the full warm-up for every workout because I didn't really warm up for every workout when I started Linchpin. Will I be losing value if I skip the warm-up? So each person's a little bit different, but I would say generally speaking, if you have the ability to give the warm-up its due, it will treat you better in the long run than not doing it. And it should be exactly that, a warm-up. Not for time, just making your way through it, waking up your body, elevating your heart rate a little bit, getting the blood pumping, moving your joints through a full range of motion, queuing up your central nervous system so that when you hit the workout, you're not going from 0 to 100 right away. For most people, I think that's going to be a wonderful thing to do, and I think it will be very kind to your knees, back, and shoulders in the long run. My wife doesn't warm up that frequently, and she seems to be just fine. I have a feeling it's going to catch up with her eventually. I don't know when. I'll let everybody know when, but I think that it will. And it also depends upon what you've done with your body. She's banged up a bit from gymnastics. I'm a walking disaster. I'm just, and that's nothing that CrossFit did. It's very bad motorcycle wrecks, some very bad stuff that happened in the military. I'm just lived with some chronic pain based upon what I've done with my body. I have to warm up, or I won't even be able to do something replicating what the movement and the workout's supposed to be. So it depends a bit on the individual, but generally speaking, yeah. And also, here's something to realize, that the warm-ups are fantastic, but you can play with them a bit if you want. Like maybe the warm-up is 3 rounds not for time, and after 2 rounds you feel good to go. You don't need to do the 3rd round. Again, you're a free, autonomous human being on planet Earth. Make the right decision for yourself. You're good to go. Don't feel this compulsion just because it's written down to do it that way. Conversely, maybe you're feeling extra groggy. It's 3 rounds, not for time of a warm-up. And at the end of the 3rd round, you're like, still just shaking the sleep off here. Do a 4th round. You're fine. Or between the two, you finish the warm-up, you get the workout there. You put a little weight in the bar. You want to do a practice round or 2 just to kind of get the body again moving a little bit as well. Totally good to go to do that. Some people love that. Some people don't. Again, this is the freedom that you have when you understand what it is, why we're doing it, and then you can make the best decision for yourself. Eric M. Let's see. I have a couple questions. Hope that's okay. Certainly okay. Number 1. Why don't you post your workouts on Beyond the Whiteboard anymore? Eric, as soon as you said that this morning, I had just a pang of guilt hit me. And I went back for the last couple days and posted my Randy and Annie stuff in there, both of which I did not for time, but I neglected to post them. So I am still posting, and I try to post all the time. And here's the funny and the irony of this whole thing. I get scatterbrained sometimes, and half the time, maybe I'm even being generous when I say half the time, I finish the workout, I'm like stretching my hip flexor against the wall, and my brain's already on whatever it is I'm going to head back into the house and start doing on the computer, or I'm going to grab my daughter, or why is my dog barking in the backyard, or whatever it is, and I finish like stretching my hip flexors and I just grab my phone and walk in the house and like forget to log far more frequently than I should. So trust me, I mean, I do it. I got to do it more often. I can get very bad about that. Appreciate it. You're good. There's no I don't know, there's no ulterior motive there. It's just forgetfulness on it. Number 2, is a weighted jump rope a suitable replacement or augmentation for double unders? So it's a good question. I have this Rogue jump rope that they don't sell anymore, but you can add weight to it, so you can establish a 1 rep max jump rope, like a 1 rep max single under. And it's not, obviously, since it's a 1 rep max and you can get quite heavy, you don't really use it for double unders. It would be a 1 rep max single under. Keep adding these small weights to the rope. And I was able to accomplish one single jump rope with 115 pounds on the actual steel cable rope. I failed at 120. So when you say weighted jump rope, it just kind of probably means, what weight are you talking about? First of all, everything that I just said there was a lie. Okay, there's no, as far as I know, there's no special jump rope to work out to a 1 rep max jump rope. So I was just joking. But I do have in my garage a couple heavy cable jump ropes, like thick steel cable jump ropes. One's from Rogue and one is from RX Smart Gear, I want to say. And I enjoy them both a lot. And actually, when I did Annie yesterday, instead of doing double unders, I did single unders with the weighted jump rope. And so a lot of times, if I'm going to grab the heavy cable rope, I just do a 1-for-1 replacement with that. And another way and it should work relatively well like that. And another thing you could think about is just based upon a time domain. How long would X number of double unders take you? And then, if in doubt, you could jump the heavy rope for that period of time and get a very similar stimulus in the workout before you move on to something else. But I really enjoy using the heavy cable rope for heavy singles. I do it probably at least half the time just because I think it's fun. Okay. Kyle M. Should elevation gain be taken into consideration when establishing likely or target times for a run? If so, how? Context: I'm originally from Florida, very flat state, but I moved to the DC, Maryland area for work about 7 years ago. Bought a house north of DC in a very hilly part of Maryland. The flattest 400-meter stretch I can find in our neighborhood gives me about 23 feet of elevation gain. For a more dramatic example, I gained slightly more than 1,000 feet in elevation during my last long run around the neighborhood. That was a 10-mile run. So, as a product of the quote-unquote military endurance culture, I'm no stranger to running, but I'm new to running exclusively in hilly areas. Should I adjust my times and expectations? Cool question. So, I lived in a very hilly part of Massachusetts when I went to college and was training for buds, and so I did all whatever the runs I was supposed to do on any given day, 2 mile, 4 mile, 10 mile, etc., on very, very, very hilly terrain. And because of that, I'm sure it affected my times. Now, when I would go and do my track work and things like that, I'd go to a track, so I didn't have to deal with a hill there. So if you can go to a track for some track days, I think that's fantastic. I would just say it depends upon how much that's affecting you. Let's say that it's on your 400-meter run course, you said you get 23 feet of elevation gain. I'm not exactly sure how much that adds to your run, but let's just say it's significant. Let's say it adds 25% to your run. For a short run, that's a lot. So now, instead of on average a 400-meter run taking somebody, let's just say 2 minutes, that might be fast or slow for you, but just on average, it takes, on this particular course, it takes Kyle 2:30. Again, for a short period of time, 25% extra is a big deal. And over the course of 3 rounds of Helen, that's an extra 75 seconds on the workout, 1:15. That's going to skew your quote-unquote score compared to everyone else by a huge margin. But you know what? It's okay. It just depends upon how much that bothers you internally. Because again, if it's just your running course and that's your 400, well, guess what? Over the course of 2 years, if your Helen time gets slower, your Helen time got slower. And if it got faster, it got faster, but the run stayed consistent, so you have a constant metric. The only problem comes with comparison with other people. Now, if it was very dramatic, and let's say that 2 minute, you're very familiar with yourself running, and you can do that 400 in a workout like that, 2 minutes every time, and try though you may, in your neighborhood it's 3 minutes, which is crazy, 50% longer, then you could, if you so desired, as long as you knew that you were running it at the pace that you should, not go off the distance, not go off like a 400 meter, take your watch, run 1 minute out, mark it 1 minute back, and in your particularly hilly neighborhood, that could be your 400 meter run course. So it's possible. Either one's totally fine. It just depends upon how much it bothers you and how much you're okay with your data being your data and your data being comparable to somebody else. But no matter what you do, even if you do that other option that I just said, you're still monkeying with it a little bit, and so it'll be closer, but it's still not exact, so your data's still not going to be exact. It's just one of those situations. So if it's not profoundly slower, even if it was 2:30 instead of 2 minutes, I'd probably just still keep it and say that's my Helen, but that's me. Scott W. Aside from Memorial Day and Murph, are there any days that you reserve for specific workouts or categories of workouts? No. That's all I got on that one. Another question from Scott. I need help at the very top of my pull-up. It's hard for me to go past my eyes above the pull-up bar, and the thought of a strict chest-to-bar pull-up is laughable. Any suggestions? Yes, for sure. So the very top of the pull-up, you get the pull-up bar to about your eye, and this last, 6 inches of pull is miserable. That makes sense. So there's a couple things that you could do. Non-pull-up work, such as bent over rows, are your friends. But up on the pull-up bar, in a safe way that you could do it, if you could get standing on a box, again, make sure you're not going to fall on the box. All those normal safety procedures should take place. Or you could jump up. If you can jump up, get your chin above the bar. Don't lock your chin on the bar, but holding your chin above the bar. Try to do some static holds at the top of the pull-up. That static hold is profoundly difficult, and that will build some top-end strength. If that's a bit too challenging for you, then you could use a little bit of a band assist to help keep you up there for 3 or 4 sets of a max effort. Again, you may want to build up to that, because if you're not used to doing static holds, it will leave you profoundly sore. So build up to it. So hopefully that crawl, walk, run approach makes sense here as well. You could also do some negatives. Now, negatives, the eccentric loading, rhabdomyolysis, all that good stuff, so be intelligent when you do this, but some negatives where you get your chin above the bar and you do a slow negative for some sets. If you can tolerate it and if your muscles are ready for that, are a great thing as well, but build up to that as well. And another thing I think would be really helpful are some seated pull-ups. If you can put a barbell in a squat rack, I think there's actually a name for them that right now I haven't had enough coffee, it's eluding me. But you've got a barbell locked into a pull-up bar, secured so it's not going to fall and bonk you on the head. You basically sit down, butt on the ground, legs straight out, and extend your arms overhead so your body is almost like you're kind of doing an L-sit, but your arms are extended up over your head. And since you have your feet on the ground, that little bit of leverage, you can use your legs if needed as you pull yourself up from that seated position. Use as much or as little leg as needed to get to that finish position at the top. And ideally, you use the bare minimum amount of leg possible so that you make those reps difficult. If you use a ton of leg and it's just really easy and you're just zinging your chin above the bar, well, you're working your legs far more than your upper body, and that's not what we want to see happen. So use the bare minimum amount of leg possible, but those seated ones on the floor, those would be fantastic. Static holds, great. Some controlled negatives, again, be cautious of the volume, be cautious of eccentric loading, be cautious of rhabdomyolysis. If you don't know what that is, please look up CrossFit Rhabdo, do your due diligence on that. But if the athlete was ready for those things, they could be great. They could be fantastic. Okay. final question. We made it through. We did a good amount of questions here. This is from Blake A. Blake says, I'm running a half marathon in October. Oh, good luck, Blake, but running, you're going to lose all of your gains. You'll literally have no gains at the end of that. But, do what you want to do. I'm running a half marathon in October and want to add a little running into my training. However, I consider the 5 sessions you program with Linchpin non-negotiable. How can I add some more running into the mix and not lose those 5 essential program days? So, Blake, what you need to do, this question was posted in the Linchpin squad on the BTWB app. There is another Linchpin, there's a Linchpin endurance squad in the BTWB app. Ryan S. is the primary individual in charge of that squad, but if you search for, I think it's Linchpin Endurance Squad, I think that's what it's called. Search for that, but I'll go into, well, hopefully Ryan S. hears this, sees this, and he can go ahead and get you into that squad. But there's an entire group of individuals in Linchpin that live and breathe exactly this. So get yourself into that squad. They'll have you covered. Life will be fantastic. So yeah, I think that's that. We've made it through all the questions. I hope everybody has a fantastic day. It's a rest day. I adore my rest days. My plan is to really do absolutely nothing other than work, and that's that. So have a great day. Treat each other well, and I'll see you in social media land.